So Halligans come in a variety of shapes and sizes. The most common bar is a 30-inch bar, and they are created by a bunch of different manufacturers. We have our Halligan bar here, which is a very straightforward bar, and what we would call all the tune-up or hot rodding's already been done. And I want to go over those pieces with you because once I'm done explaining to you what our bar already has, I'm going to show you how to modify your bar in case you've purchased another bar. Because my goal is for you to be successful, and honestly, most of this stuff was passed down to me, so I'm passing it off to the next generation. So what we did on our bar is on our ads, we just had them from the factory add a 1 3/4 inch mark onto our ads on both sides. So on both the front and I guess on the back of our bar. The other thing that we did is when we had them make the ads, and this is a flat ad, so you can get both a flat or a curved ads, right? I'm not telling you which one of those to get, but I will tell you this. Whichever one you do, your cut should not come from the bottom up. You'll see this one's nice and flat here, and that cut comes from the top down. It is absolutely imperative to do your tools. We've seen multiple events where this has made all the difference. I challenge you, if you're not using your bar in that configuration, to try it. You're gonna have a much greater success rate. All right. On the fork end, we do the same thing. We make a mark at 1 3/4 inches, and then we also make a mark at the end of the tool's work area, or what we call the crotch of the tool. So this mark here is equal with here, and this mark here is equal with 1 3/4 inches. All right? And then the last big thing is we make sure we shoulder our fork. What that allows is that if I have a striking tool, and if you remember in our hinge video, when I was striking, I was actually using this as my strike point with my axe. So I can follow my axe straight down the line of this Halligan and catch this, and because it is nice and flatly shouldered, it will not slide off. What happens, you get one like this, as it comes down, because it hasn't been shouldered, it wants to slide off, so you don't have a nice striking point there. Whereas on the other one, nice and clean. So what we'll do today is we're gonna shoulder this one. We're gonna do some modifications. We're gonna put some marks at 1 3/4 at the crotch. And we're gonna get this tool all tuned up for you so you can be successful in your operational area. So the first thing we're gonna do is make sure we have all the right tools. Now, I'll probably catch some hell for this, and I really don't care. I do not use a file. Not once, not ever if I can avoid it. My time is just worth it, and I'm not gonna change the temper of a tool unless I truly sit here and heat this thing for a significant amount of time. And the small amount of grinding I'm about to do is not gonna heat this tool to that part. If you look at tempering, tempering takes typically 4 hours at a specific oven temperature. If you're concerned, the other option you have is go get yourself a 5-gallon can of water, set it next to you, and if you think that the tool is getting too hot, just simply set it in the water, let it cool real quick, bring it back out, and continue working on it. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna mark our tool. So all we need is a Sharpie and some form of measuring device. So again, I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna go 1 3/4 and make my mark. Okay, that's where my first mark's gonna go. And then I'm gonna measure this one to see where my crotch is. So it's about 4 1/2 inches. So I'll go 4 1/2 inches. Okay, I'll do that to that side. And then we do the same thing to the opposite side. Okay, so it's been marked on both sides. And now I'm gonna go to the ads end. Now the ads end, I'll only do the 1 3/4 inch mark. I won't need to do the other one. Okay, now our tool's marked. So, I'm gonna take my 4 1/2 inch angle grinder. I'm gonna remove my flapper disc. So here's a couple things real quick. If you're not afraid to use a 4 1/2 inch grinder, get yourself a cutoff wheel. Okay, this is a simple cutoff wheel. And then get yourself what's called a flapper disc, which is basically just a sanding disc. 60 grit works great. So we're gonna go first to the cutoff wheel. We're gonna use this to make our marks. And we're not gonna go deep, we're just gonna go shallow. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and make some cuts, just nice and shallow, into our bar. All right, here we go. If you have a buddy or someone that can secure this in, I have a buddy, it's just called a really good magnet. That's gonna help keep that bar in place while I'm grinding on it. I just don't want the bar to move while I'm doing my work. You can see it's a really small divot. One of the things you can do on top of this is get some luminescent paint and fill that with a luminescent paint. That way, if you're working in the dark, you have a mark that you can see. All right, side number 2. All right, now our bar is marked, so that part's taken care of. The next thing I want to do is I want to shoulder the bar, okay? This is going to take a little bit more time. I'm going to clamp the bar over here, so we might have to adjust our video shot. But I'm going to work this right here initially with a cutoff wheel. And the reason I'm going to use a cutoff wheel is I have a lot more control than just driving a big thick disc into it. And I'm just going to try and make a nice clean edge cut. That cut's probably the toughest one to make because you're really trying to make the thing flat all the way across and not go too deep into the actual shoulder of it. So I've got a nice initial cut. I'll clip this top piece off and then I'll start working this down nice and easy. So you can see with the cutoff wheel, I've kind of clipped that top and it's made kind of a jagged edge, which is fine. We're not done, but I do want you to see the steps that we're going through. We're not rushing this. We're just working nice and easy, trying to slowly cut because we don't want to cut into the bar. We want to keep the bar at its width or close to its original width. And we want to just be able to work that down. Grinding blades typically come in a 1/4 inch thick variety, and this is a perfect thickness for utilization of your work on your Halligan. We're now going to take this, put it on our tool, and we're going to walk it right in here. And we're going to try to nice and slowly get that nice cornered or shouldered edge. So you can see now that since we haven't gone deep into that area, we still have a nice, the bar hasn't been affecting the insides. We're creating this really nice flat section that we'll be able to strike on. Okay, so there's the difference, right? Nice shouldered blade. I can drop something right down on that. You'll see just utilizing even this, right? It lands, right? Here, doesn't land. So this is what we're after every time we do it. So now I'm gonna do the opposite side. Again, I'll start off with a cutoff disc and then work my way back over to finally a flapper wheel. All right, now we've got it shouldered. Again, make sure it's not slipping off as it comes down and lands. Now you can always take this and even cut deeper. I try not to cut deep in case I get some wear and tear on this and I need to actually resurface it. So you'll see kind of a bevel right here or a chamfer. I'm not usually going below that the first time I shoulder it. But if you choose to, there's plenty of meat in there. It shouldn't be a problem. Again, be careful how much material you take off around your bar. You want to protect the width of the bar as much as possible. All right. Finally, we've talked to you guys a little bit about the fact that the adze end of the tool is really important. You can see that we make our cut from the top of the bevel as well, I call it down. And here you can see that the cut is actually on the bottom here. They've actually got pretty much a neutral, almost like a chisel bevel, which I would prefer over the ones that come straight from the bottom up. All I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna turn it down a little bit. And I'll use a flapper pad for the rest of this. On the initial pass, usually that's all that's required is a small amount of grinding. We can go over it a couple more times, but basically, I don't want to take off so much of the end of the tool that I thin it out. I just want to start creating the bevel from this top side going down this way. This will guarantee that when I'm camming on a door, especially these two end corners, bite into my door the way I intend them to do. So that's the big difference right there, right? So we got to hot rod the tool. We got to basically change our cut from top down here on our adze and add our 1 3/4 inch mark. And then on our fork side, we're going to add our 1 3/4 inch mark and our, in this case, 4.5 inch mark or the crotch of the tool mark. And then finally, we went ahead and shouldered the tool. So in small space, we have a place that we can strike the tool. And that's modification of our tools. I do want everybody to understand, our tools come this way from the factory, and so all of our warranties apply. If you go ahead and modify your tools by another manufacturer, you may very well void their warranties. Please consult them if there's any concerns. Thanks so much for listening, and go out and breach some doors.